Muy buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por atender a este webinar. Ya tenemos casi 22, 25 personas. Vamos a arrancar en un par de minutos. Solo recordarles que este webinar va a ser en inglés, dado que un par de nuestros invitados no hablan español. Cualquier pregunta que quieran hacer que vamos a estar cubriendo en los últimos 15 minutos de este webinar, las pueden hacer a través del chat. Todos los invitados están en modo de escuchar nada más, así que encantado de yo ver esas preguntas que pueden colocar ahí y hacérselas, como les digo, en los últimos 15 minutos a los invitados. Así que con eso, gracias por estar con nosotros. Vamos a empezar en un minuto. Y como les decía anteriormente, el webinar va a ser en inglés. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Hilario Itriago. I am a co-founder and director at the MIA Hub, the Miami Insurtech Advocates Hub. Thank you so much for being with us today and joining us in this webinar, whose title is Adding Re to Insurtech, organized by the MIA Hub and all of its founding members. And we also want to thank our panel for joining us, Yelhis Hernández from Lloyd's, Ryan Jones from BMS Group, and Adam from Nayms. I really appreciate you guys devoting your time for this webinar. So we're going to have about 40 to 45 minutes. And I should correct, Adamson from Nayms. I missed your last name there, Adam. We're going to have about 45 minutes for the webinar to go through, and then we're going to leave the last 50 minutes for some questions, Q&A, that each member attendee can ask through the system. And that way we let the conversation flow, and then afterwards ask any questions that we may have. So with that, why don't we kick off, and why don't we start with some introductions? Ladies first, Yelhis, if you want to introduce yourself and what you do and a little bit of your history.
Thank you, Hilario. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Well, let me talk about myself. I have more than 25 years of experience in the reinsurance industry. And I have spent the last 10 years working in different roles, including risk management, mergers and acquisitions, strategy, business development in different countries across Latin America and the Caribbean, including Argentina, Venezuela, Brazil, and Mexico. I've been country manager for Lloyd's in Mexico since September 2019, with a focus on improving the Lloyd's market access across Mexico by supporting managing agents and cover holders on the ground. And I am also responsible for developing access to Lloyd's across Central America, which includes Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. More recently, I'm also helping market development area in Puerto Rico. Before joining Lloyd's, I was Chief Operating Officer for Willis Tower Watson in Mexico, and I started my career at Zurich in Venezuela. Thank you.
Excellent. Adam, you wanna continue?
Yes, thanks. Very nice to be here, and thank you so much for having so many people join today. I'm based in Hamilton, Bermuda. I work for a new startup company called Nayms, which is a blockchain-based insurance marketplace. designed to bring new third-party capital into the insurance and reinsurance sectors. And we do that via linking by the blockchain, bringing the capital in and allowing different managing underwriters to set up underneath us to deploy that capital into the market. And it can be both insurance and reinsurance. We are licensed by the Bermuda Monetary Authority, and we're one of the first companies to carry a license called the Innovative Insurers General Business License, which allows us to pursue unique types of transactions that would be non-standard to what the traditional insurers are able to handle. Before coming to Nayms to head business development, I worked for 2 years at Marsh & McLennan as a vice president casualty broker. Before that, spent 5 years working at Aon as a broker working specifically in the sharing economy space. And then before that, I worked for Arthur J. Gallagher in their alternative risk arm called Artex, working on reinsurance and different other pooling arrangements, sort of alternative risk structures. And then I was an underwriter for 8 years for the first part of my career for a company based in the US called Federated Mutual Insurance.
Excellent. Excellent. Last but not least, Ryan, over to you.
That's wonderful. I'm the relative newcomer in all sorts of ways. My name's Ryan Jones, and I'm the head of innovation for BMS Group, which is a global wholesale insurance and reinsurance broker. And we're obviously growing rapidly. You might have seen in the news that had yet another round of investment, and our targets have become even bigger, and you'll see regular news of our expansion in all sorts of territories, all sorts of product lines. So it's an exciting time to be part of the company and a part of insurance. But my background isn't in insurance. My background is cybersecurity and cyber risk, which I picked up a little bit of when I was in the U.S. Marine Corps for 5.5 years. I then went into cybersecurity as a consultant and worked for a number of software companies, which eventually led me to insurance about 7 years ago. And my entirety of my insurance career has been spent at BMS. And I've been fortunate enough to be the head of innovation for 5 of those years. Basically, my role has been to keep my head above the parapet and understand what Insurtech is doing and how the industry is changing with all of this new technology and the different kind of companies that are emerging all of the time, how we can work with them or sometimes buy them, but just understand what's coming and how we might interact with it. So I have a role that keeps me on my toes. I'm constantly learning, and I try to keep or maintain some naivety about insurance and how it has worked. It allows me to keep a fresh perspective, I think, and an open mind about how it can work in the future. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to this conversation.
Well, congratulations on joining insurance. The good news is this is a fascinating, industry, as you already, I'm sure, have experienced. The bad news is that I'm yet to meet someone who have joined the insurance industry and have been able to actually get out of it. So you're in for the long haul. So enjoy the ride.
7 years goes by fast. Yes.
There you go. There you go. Excellent, guys. This is a great way to start. And let me just dive into rather quickly, because we clearly have 3 very different type of organizations and individuals and their roles and experiences. And so I'm sure what the audience is asking themselves is, okay, how is it that each of you actually look at Insurtech in the context of reinsurance within each of your roles? And I'm sure there's going to be a diversity of answers, which is why I think this is quite interesting. So if we go in reverse order, Brian, why don't you kick us off in telling, how does your role play ball in the Insurtech space, and get us going with that?
Sure. So it is worth saying that the majority of our reinsurance presence is in the U.S. And we have quite an established presence there. But that's not to say we don't have it elsewhere, especially in London. And we're branching into Latin America for the last decade now. So from my perspective, reinsurance is still looking at the opportunity very carefully. We have plenty of insurtechs kind of at the coalface when it comes to retail distribution. They might be platforms that customers, whether it's personal lines or commercial, are logging into and making purchasing decisions or risk management decisions, and interacting more with technology as opposed to the broker on the other end of a phone. So there's that perspective to keep an eye on, but there's way more than that. There's plenty happening in the modeling space and data and analytics as well. And I think that can really, aside from the efficiencies you can gain from just pure tech plays, I think you can look at some of the novel ways that data and analytics can help us make more profitable decisions and distribute better products over time, and make the right calls, make us all more sustainable as an industry and as businesses. So I think from my perspective, it comes in a variety of flavors. Insurtech can be something very much on the retail side of it, and we're looking at ways to support, let's say, MGAs who are insurtechs with reinsurance capacity, and we're also looking at the analytics that underlines everything that insurers who are our clients are doing. So I think it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to explore. And the good news is there's no shortage of good ideas out there. I think where we run into very practical challenges has to do with our resource, and especially time. There's only so much time to put towards exploring some of these great ideas, and you have to make good calls. So in working with our guys in the US especially, a lot of what we focus on is kind of triaging opportunities and understanding where we get the most bang for the buck potentially. And so that's a lot of what my experience has been with insurtech in the broking space.
Awesome. So speaking of new models and new businesses, Adam, why don't you continue and tell us a little bit about how that plays within your organization?
Yeah, so we're obviously, given that we're a blockchain-based company, we're quite new. The existence of Nayms has only been around for 4 years, and we really weren't completely licensed by the Bermuda Monetary Authority until mid-May, and operating as the second company to operate under this new innovative insurer's license. Bermuda, which has always been known as the world's risk capital, has long been a player in the reinsurance space and has typically been very innovative in trying to find unique ways to bring capital into the space. And that's been done via cat bonds and ILS vehicles, which are really, the last 25 years have seen dramatic growth. We look at a company that is now part of Artex, but called Horseshoe Re. And that company has been able to give people a transformative vehicle to bring third-party capital into the market. And Nayms is in many ways playing off of what they did, but doing it even in a different way, and doing so on blockchain to allow both the trustless application that blockchain brings to insurance, and in this case, reinsurance placement, but also trying to find accesses to new capital sources. And obviously with South America seeing growth, in the digital currency state, and the usage of it in South America, what we have is a platform that can allow that capital to then come in and back various reinsurance projects, much like how the ILS industry has done that over the last 20 years. We have a platform that allows that digital capital to come in and potentially back various reinsurance projects. And so I think that those are some of the things that we're seeing. And I know there are other companies in Bermuda who are working in that same realm, which is how to find ways to provide new types of coverage, be it, there's a recently announced crypto ILS vehicle that has been placed by Arthur J. Gallagher, as well as other companies who are trying to find innovative ways to bring alternative capital sources to bear in the reinsurance market. I think that's really the thing that we're seeing from insurtechs on our little island, is new ways to deploy new sources of capital and even existing capital, but doing so in new and unique products. So we're trying to constantly innovate here, and I give the Bermuda Monetary Authority a lot of credit, because they have taken some steps with their licenses that allowed some of these new projects to get off the ground, and a sandbox environment that allows companies to come in and test and develop their platform to allow them then to be able to eventually launch as a full insurance or reinsurance vehicle.
That's excellent, and I'm sure we're going to be digging in a little bit more around that model of your company, you know, and the type of organizations that can actually operate leveraging it. But Yelhis, to you now. I mean, Lloyd's, you know, a very historic name, but also dipping their toes in Insurtech, and interested to see and have your take on it.
Thank you, Hilario. Yes, well, Lloyd's is the home for solving complex customer challenges. As you know, we are the largest marketplace for insurance solutions, and we have a network of brokers, core holders, managing agents in our platform across the world. But we also have now the Lloyd's Lab, and you're pretty familiar with it. The Lloyd's Lab is the heart of the innovation for insurance and reinsurance. It's an award-winning space dedicated to accelerating and fostering new products and solutions for the needs of our customers around the world. The lab is great at bringing new technology-centric ideas and incubating or accelerating them. And our main program, the Insurtech Accelerator, aims to help innovative ideas to gain traction and success in the insurance market. I'm sure I will be able to talk about some of the ideas later on the discussion. But thinking about Latin America and the role that Lloyd's plays, Latin America and the Caribbean is an important region for Lloyd's. We contribute in 7% of all of the gross written premium of the group. And Mexico, particularly, is bringing $331 million US. So at present, Mexico is the second largest market for Lloyd's in Latin America. And this is basically due to the high level of the cat exposure. But we are primarily writing reinsurance from here. So for us, it's very important to incorporate the Insurtech into our arena. And as well as being an important region for Lloyd's, it has certainly made its mark on the innovation landscape. In 2021, for instance, the region startup raised around $20 billion in funding. So for us, again, it is really, really important to have our footprint here. However, our industry needs to continue looking for solutions. And I believe the unique position that we have at Lloyd's and the environment that we have currently presents a lot of opportunities in modernizing the ways we are doing things. And we need to understand the future customer demand. We need to understand the future market appetite. And we also need to highlight the specific gaps to bring together the market and the customer and to develop innovative solutions. And that's what we have at the Lloyd's Lab. An event like this and the lab will help us to do so.
That's great. And you know, speaking of the Lloyd's Lab, and full disclosure, many in the call would know, but many won't. I lead Box Insurance in the USA and Latin America. Box Insurance is a Lloyd's Lab graduate in cohort number 4. We're a cyber MGA working in Canada and the US with our own Lloyd's capacity and delivering our protection services internationally. So I can attest to the fact that, you know, platforms and instruments of development of the Insurtech ecosystem, you know, are valuable platforms and springboards for, you know, Insurtechs to tap into for growth and deliver new business models, etc. So I think that's very attuned. that leads me to the next question to you guys, which is really, where do you see, or what are the main areas of focus in terms of capabilities and type of businesses that each of your organizations would likely support or provide your services to? So, Adam, now to start with someone different. Adam, why don't you tell us something around that? Who are the typical clients of Nayms that would go and leverage your platform the most, and what do they need to consider before going and trying to work with you guys?
Yeah, so for us specifically, we target people who are operating in and around the digital asset ecosystem itself. And so as more and more companies are exploring blockchain type solutions, there are things that are needed for that. Cyber cover obviously being one of them, but even more specifically, there are specific types of insurance, something called smart contract cover, which is in some ways a variation of cyber insurance. Those sort of coverages lend itself very well to being written on a blockchain-based platform like Nayms. Companies that are potentially generating revenues in cryptocurrency and or have potential exposures in cryptocurrency, where they want to buy their insurance in the denomination of cryptocurrency that they are most likely to suffer the loss in. That's the sort of targets that we have, both from underwriters, managing underwriters who have a desire to underwrite those type of policies. We give them the infrastructure to do so, as well as insureds who are looking to buy those policies or potentially even operate their own captive, utilizing our infrastructure to be able to do that type of business. So that's really what our core focus is in terms of the companies that we partner with and like to partner with. And then the other part that we see is companies who are trying to access innovative capital. And so companies who are looking outside of the traditional reinsurance capital that comes to the market, but companies that are looking for alternative capital sources, we can put them directly linked to these new innovative hedge funds. Companies that are doing things may have a portfolio of, say, digital assets that they want to recognize yield on. We have the vehicles to be able to allow them to do that. So that's really the core partners that we're working with at Nayms.
Super interesting. And Ryan, you were talking about the U.S. being the largest market for you guys, but equally, we have to assume that when it comes to innovation and innovative capabilities, you also look at the areas of opportunities from how can they be deployed in each market. So from your perspective, what have you seen? What kind of capabilities have you leveraged at BMS that have been of most value, and which ones are you looking for, these days?
That's a good question. I think one of our specialties at BMS has to do with our analytics capability in-house. And we're always looking at the different kinds of analytics players out there who specifically look to support insurance products. So I would say that traditionally that's where we've spent a lot of time looking. We're looking for better ways to evaluate certain types of peril, but all sorts of types of risk. And it can be across any product line. I've seen some very clever things done in workers' comp, for instance, and workplace safety type plays. And of course, our clients are insurers. So arming them with these tools can be a really powerful thing as part of making them an attractive or continually improving kind of company to support for the reinsurers out there. So I think with analytics, that's something that we're always looking at. But I would say that we know that the platform plays don't necessarily have to be specific to a geography. So if we find something that works really well for Canada, why not just deploy that elsewhere? And there are certain cultural considerations and buying behavior type decisions to take into account. But if as a broker, we understand which things work well through a bunch of experience, and often that's trial and error. I think we help our clients stay ahead and not have to learn through pain, through failure so often, as is the case with a lot of technology plays that you find people getting into.
That's a great way to look at it. You know, so in many ways, you guys are in charge of curating some of these, well, all of these technologies, so you could actually validate their value and how and when and where best to deploy them for the benefit of your clients. So it's
Put that better than I could have. So that, yes, exactly.
That's phenomenal. No, that's great. And and for all those that are listening right now, that for example, think of capabilities. That's part of the nature of the MIA Hub here, is to bring these players like Ryan, Adam, and Yelhis to these type of conversations, but also outside of this conversation, the MIA Hub, is just trying to bring that knowledge and the ability exposed, validated solutions so they can actually make a difference in each of the markets. So speaking of markets, and Yelhis, given that Latin America is your bread and butter, and you're actually based in Mexico, and in the context of Lloyd's, what have been interesting Insurtech solutions in Latin America that you've seen recently that merit or that have had conversations with you guys at the Lloyd's level?
Thank you, Hilario. This is very, very good that you are asking me to that, because I mean, we've been working with so many Insurtech within the Lloyd's Lab for over 5 years, but there are some Insurtech that will actually help the Latin American environment. As you know, here in Latin American region, we're getting more and more exposed to catastrophes such as earthquakes and extreme weather. Actually, I faced an earthquake yesterday. Very, very small, but a very sudden movement. So it wasn't a good experience at all. So at Lloyd's, we are innovating to create smarter solutions. For example, parametric triggers, like those used by the Lloyd's Lab participant Flood Flash. And we are transforming the disaster protection, and we are enabling faster claims payment through pre-agreed triggers with Insurtech like this. But also, we are working with data, and we recently also have another Insurtech, which is signal intelligence. And signal intelligence through NI-driven predictive analysis platform works with the marine organization to identify early signs of machinery breakdowns on any size of any ships. And this will help to increase vessel availability to reduce accidents at sea and aid the transition to the low carbon economy. So also we are working with Value Space, and we recently partnered Value Space with one big company here in Mexico. And Value Space is an innovative structural survey tool for insurers around the globe. They are providing detailed data, and they are assessing buildings, infrastructures, using radar images from satellites, allowing them to quantify how much a structure, such as a tower block, a production plant, or a dam, has moved. And they can track back as far 8 years. So they conducted a survey, and it's 100% remotely, meaning that it can be up to 25 times more cost effective and 10 times faster. And it's good for our planet as well. So we're looking for solutions that are helping the companies to move towards the transition, but also helping them to reduce costs, to avoid, wasting time in using third-party providers in order to assess claims, etc. I think this is what we can bring into the table, having these type of solutions that are coming from the lab, and it can be used in any location, not only in Latin America, but any location where they are facing these kind of perils. And that's what we are here for, to help, everybody that is within this remit, but also to make sure that we provide benefits to our environment and to our industry as a whole.
And those are great examples. And let me stay with you for a second, because one of the areas that it's super important around this whole concept of Insurtech is the fact that more and more Insurtechs are wanting to get into the the MGA space, for want of a better description. The managing general agent that actually gets its own capacity, whether it's from Lloyd's or another reinsurer, and actually play a far more integrated role within the risk transfer piece than just being distributors. And so, aside from the Insurtechs that provide capabilities, which it's great examples, the one that you put there, have you seen any evidence in Latin America of companies that are wanting to get capacity from Lloyd's to operate in the region with their own business models?
Actually, I have. I met with a couple of companies a couple of weeks ago in London. They are using capacity from the market, from different syndicates, so they can write business directly in Latin America. And they're Insurtech. There are companies that are using AI to write business. They are using data. They are using very little amount of people.
You guys hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
We seem to have lost Yelhis for a second. Well, if we're still live and we've only lost her, why don't we move on to Ryan? Similar question. Have you seen any interesting models recently that are asking for capacity that you guys can actually manage and actually deploy into Latin America, ideally, because that's the audience that we currently have. But if you don't have any examples in that area anywhere in the world that are worth mentioning.
Yeah, we do have a number of what you'd classify as Insurtech clients who are MGAs, and as far as whether they're fully deployed in Latin America, I can't tell for sure right now. But I know that when we look at workers' comp and personal auto and parametric, some of the plays or clients that we have in those spaces, I know certainly on the parametric front that there's an active pursuit. Some of them have even probably originated in their testing in places like Brazil, and that gives us a lot of insight into just how much interest there is in the region for kind of the next generation of in this case MGAs, but these Insurtech enabled kind of insurance plays. I think part of the challenge is to understand how to connect with the right type of capacity on the reinsurance side. That's one thing that we've obviously had a lot of experience with, given our history, but I think you can't underestimate that, because it is a different mindset to evaluate some of the Insurtech businesses that are coming along. It isn't as easy to fit them in the traditional models that you would use to evaluate as a reinsurer whether or not to back these things. So I think in helping MGAs understand how to speak Insurtech MGAs speak the language that they need to speak to connect to the right kinds of reinsurance capacity has been a challenge, but highly rewarding. And we've come up with some clever ways of doing it in such a way that some of these early stage insurtechs can benefit from our experience and our services without necessarily having to put out a huge outlay of cash up front. So we have some innovative things going on there.
And I think that's great to know, and certainly a quite important takeaway of this conversation. It's interesting you mentioned the fact that organizations, in this case insurtechs, need to be aware that as innovative as their business model might be, and their technology capabilities and all that, in the end, they need to be in the context of what the insurance business is all about. They need to understand it, to make it profitable. They need to have, the right network to really gauge the ability to get that capacity from the markets. It's not as easy for everybody to actually do so, but it's not necessarily as difficult as many people think. So that is important. I can speak of that from experience. We are an MGA in Canada. We're also an MGA in the US now at Box Insurance, and it requires that you have the right networking at the beginning, but also the right track record once it comes to maintain that capacity, going forward. So that's not a small piece and a key piece of information in this conversation, to be honest, for everybody. Adam, I'm fascinated by the fact that your business model is one that deals with blockchain and smart contracts and crypto and all those new components. So the question that I like to ask you, and more than a question, is whether you can take us through an example of a business model that's been fully operational through the capabilities that your platform provides. How has it sourced the capacity? What kind of product does it sell? How does it operate through the platform, etc.? Just to get a picture of an end-to-end process through Nayms.
Yeah, great question. Thanks. And so, similar to kind of what an ILS process looks like, there is a travel insurance company who markets their travel disruption insurance via third-party providers, and they do so by offering it both in fiat dollars, but as well as cryptocurrency, so that you can pay for your travel insurance in those ways. And their issue has been a shortage of capacity. So they haven't been able to grow as fast as they wanted to because they don't have the capital backing their projects, because certainly if there was a large amount of cancellations all at one time, that would trigger a call on that capital. And so what they did is they came to us, and because they specifically had some exposure around some of their clients paying in cryptocurrency and then needing to reimburse them in cryptocurrency, they came to us and opened up a dedicated captive vehicle within Nayms that they assign themselves the underwriter as. So they're effectively issuing their insurance platform a reinsurance contract via Nayms. And then what we did is we approached various hedge funds and family offices who had cryptocurrency that were looking to recognize yield on that cryptocurrency, and asked them to invest and offer them obviously a return for that investment. And we were able to garner enough to get their pilot off the ground. And first thing I should say is that Nayms is fairly new. We've just recently launched, so we don't have 50. We're not Lloyd's where we have 50 syndicates working on our platform. But in this particular case, that was our model, where you had somebody who had a need for reinsurance, need to access alternative capital, and they really wanted that capital source to be cryptocurrency. So they utilized our vehicle to be able to issue themselves that reinsurance contract, but then attracted the third-party capital via certain investors who had cryptocurrency that were looking to recognize yield on that. And that's really what our platform is. And I think circling back to what you were talking about with some of these MGUs, we're that solution for companies who are operating in the digital asset space, who are looking to have an on-chain insurance solution. Those are the MGUs that we're really working with. And we've even encountered companies who do work like in the Lloyd's environment in Bermuda and have great, robust business models in fiat, but really don't have a way to, both from a regulatory standpoint or technological standpoint, to be handling cryptocurrency. We give people that vehicle to do so. So we're constantly on the lookout for managing general agents, underwriters who might have that need. And those are the companies that we're always looking to partner with, much like the travel insurer that I referenced.
Phenomenal. No, thank you so much for that explanation. It gives a whole new perspective as to, what you guys do and what people can do with you and your platform. So I don't know if we have Yelhis back. Are you back, Yelhis?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, awesome! Because we lost you for a bit, and that's why I jumped into other questions. But now that you're back, I wonder if, because I know you've gone back to the Lloyd's lab, as that center of the capability producing machine at Lloyd's, and I guess the natural question would be, is the Lloyd's lab going to go international anytime soon? Is the Lloyd's lab thinking of perhaps, rather than centralizing a few insurtechs per cohort per year in London, to multiply the effect and perhaps have one in Madrid and one in Miami and one in Singapore? Is that in the cards, or is that not there yet?
That's a good question. We recently did a thematic cohort, which was focused on European solutions. And as you know, we recently joined the ITC event in Miami. We tried to kind of assess the level of maturity within the Latin American market. We did a pitch at the ITC, and we selected one winner, which will fast track to the next cohort, which is starting quite soon. But I think due to the level of maturity, I will say that the focus of the lab will be probably Asia, apart from London, of course, and perhaps Americas, meaning United States and Canada for the time being. But that doesn't mean that you cannot apply or be part of if you are a Latin American Insurtech. What means is that what we're looking for are solutions that are that they have the capability to expand, to grow, and to be part of the solution in any location. But if you are a Latin American Insurtech and you want to apply to the next cohort, we absolutely want to do that. And in order to make sure that the Insurtechs that are coming from the region are being seen and considered, what we said, and this is probably what you want to hear, is that we are going to use the network, meaning myself and other country managers within the region, to help assessing the Insurtech application form before it goes to the next level. So we will be kind of the filter for those that are applying from the region, and then we will help the voice of the region to be heard at the center of the Lloyd's Lab in London.
Well, now you've heard it, people. If you are in this webinar and you have an Insurtech and you think you have capabilities that can help Lloyd's be of interest, that's the way to do it. I will take advantage of the fact that I'm moderating this and representing the MIA Hub, that we can also help the Lloyd's Lab in doing that. We have members in our Miami Advocates Hub that can support that process, especially thinking that there's over 400 Insurtechs in Latin America fully mapped these days. So I think this is a unique opportunity, and to all of those listening, make sure that you take advantage of that that Yelhis just mentioned. We are almost 45 minutes into this conversation, so I think it's a good time to open for questions. There should be the ability for the attendees to throw questions through the Q&A section. I know I've managed to receive one already, so if you would like to take a minute and send your questions through there, I'll be more than happy to ask the panel about them, and that way we can use the last 10, 15 minutes on that. Let's give people a minute. Don't be shy. Do ask your questions. So there was a question earlier that I think I answered. I hope I answered correctly, but the first company, Yelhis, that you mentioned through the conversation that you have been working with was Flood Flash. But do you mind adding the others that you also mentioned that you were working with more recently?
Yes, yes. The next one I mentioned is signal intelligence. This is purely AI driven, and the other one is value space.
Signal intelligence and value space. Excellent. We'll probably be sharing those after this webinar and their websites, so everybody that attended can actually have that information. There's a couple more that have just come in. Any of the panel members interested in the pet insurance vertical?
If they want to do it in cryptocurrency, we'd be interested.
There you go. Great answer, Adam.
I think for the Lloyd's Lab, depending on the type of insurance you're looking for, let me give you an example. I just recently met with a lady from an Insurtech that they are focusing on IVF. IVF, for those that are not familiar with it, is fertilization process that women have to go through in order to get pregnant if they have trouble with that particularly. So this is very expensive, and this is very unique, and it is affecting part of the population. And when I saw this product, I was like, oh, this is very unique. And the way it works is that this product allows the people to get at least 3 tests. And if one of the tests is positive and you get pregnant, then you will have to repay in certain amount of months the cost of the product, of the IVF treatment, sorry. But if it's not positive, then you only pay for the premium. And this is quite unique. And what I'm saying is that depending upon the type of product you want to build, we might be interested, because the scalability of the product is one of the things that we are focusing on, but also whether this can be placed in different locations, and so I think probably Guillermo is the person that asked this question. You might want to have a conversation with me and see in detail what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think you bring a very good point, Yelhis, which is, in reality, for all of those that are listening, I wouldn't try to ask the question and answer it yourself. Meaning, would this be interesting to Lloyd's? Oh, perhaps not. And then that's that. I mean, if you have an idea or you have a business and you have the doubt that would this be of interest to Lloyd's, I mean, I think you should contact the Lloyd's team and ask them yourselves. And maybe they are interested, maybe they are open, and if they're not, they'll tell you so, and you probably go and call Ryan. But at least you go and ask the question to any of these individuals and talented professionals that we've had today in our webinar, because it might be of interest. I was surprised by the answer of Adam just now. Pet insurance. Well, if you're paying crypto and you want to use crypto as a way to operationalize the pet insurance, yeah, we're open to listen to that. That's a phenomenal opportunity right there and then. So I think it's very important that everybody just takes advantage of asking the question to those who would potentially have the key to either give you the capacity or point you in the right direction, which are either of these, as I said, talented individuals we've had today in the panel. There's another question, which I think it was partly answered. How easy or not is it to find startups that can support reinsurance and underwriting with focus in Latam? I'm guessing that part of the answer that I think I heard was not that many. It's more for the bigger markets, but I let any of the three answer that. So open to whomever wants to go first.
I mean, I will actually say we have had one company approach us, which I found interesting. I know that the use of cryptocurrency is growing in Latin, probably as much as anywhere else, at least from a per capita standpoint. So, I think it'll be interesting to see if more people look to us, because we're really more the infrastructure and the technology portion of it, as opposed to being like the actual actual vehicle itself. So I have been approached from that standpoint, but I think from the things that we look at, we're probably getting more questions from the digital asset space as a whole, which does not really have a geographical bent as much as more like an operational bent to it. But certainly we're open to that if that's something that fits somebody's business plan. And like I said, there was one that approached us, and because we're very centric around Bermuda, the North America, and London. That's kind of where our core team operates. That's kind of where a majority of our opportunities have come from at this point, but we're starting to hear more from Asia. And then, certainly as Latam grows in that area, it certainly is an opportunity for us to find good partners down there.
Great. Another question that has come in is, do we think that, there's not more companies out of Latin America, looking into that capacity space because there's not enough market in Latin America to do that? Or I certainly, by the numbers that Yelhis mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, it seems to me that there is market and there is enough money to actually have a valid or more than one valid business model. But what are the thoughts of the panel?
Well, I would jump in here and say that part of it has to do with something I brought up at the very beginning, which has to do with resource and time. I think there's no shortage of really interesting ideas out there, but I think it does take a lot of energy and in the end some expertise to kind of come together and execute. And it is an extremely challenging thing to do. Anyone who works in Insurtech or in any startup in general knows it is fraught. It's extraordinarily challenging, and it feels like a lot of luck is involved. But I think a lot of what we see is some very good ideas that are good in theory in a lot of ways, but haven't necessarily nailed the distribution strategy yet, or even the specific tactics around that. And as a reinsurance broker, that's something that we have a lot of experience keeping an eye out for. Is if a company has really good tech, lots of people have good tech. I think that's not as much of a differentiator. I think a lot of it still has to do with how savvy or how fortunate or how connected or how networked you are into a really good distribution model. How can you tap into the market that you're after? I think the the Insurtechs that understand that is still probably the most crucial element. That's what really turns heads when it comes to capacity. That's what turns heads when it comes to brokers, is if there's really smart ideas about how to tap into the market in terms of distribution. I think people will start to come together a lot. I don't think there's a shortage of really good ideas. I think that's true across any region. But I think it takes a little more luck, maybe. It just takes something, that extra step, and it is rare to find companies that have really nailed their distribution plans.
That's a great answer, Ryan. And I will add to that, just based on my own experience, that remember the order in which the word is actually syntaxed is important. Insurtech, meaning you got to be an insurance valid business before you can actually be a technology business. You may have the technology first, but you still need to validate that you have a valid insurance business. And so never lose sight of that. I think we've managed to keep an audience of more than 60 people together for almost an hour, which is incredible. I think this conversation has been phenomenal, certainly for our first webinar at the MIA Hub. I think it's been a great success, both in terms of the panelists and also the content that they've brought to the table. I really want to thank each and every one of you, Yelhis, Adam, Ryan. It's been a pleasure. We really appreciate your time and having shared your knowledge and experience with us during this hour. To all of those that connected, thank you very much for also sharing your time with us. We really appreciate that, and leave you with the thought that the MIA Hub is here to develop and grow our ecosystem in Latin America, leveraging Miami as that springboard that can work both ways into the region and outside of the region. And we're here to help. So we're delighted to have you with us. We look forward to have more engagement from all of you. And I thank you for your time and wish you a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hilario.
Be well,
And
guys.
the team.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.